the Rangers Journal Night.
Hello everybody, welcome to Rangers Journal. My name's Scotty, I'm your host, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sia to speak about Thiago Motta today. Sia, how are you?
All good. Thanks for having me. All good. It's a good day here in Stockholm, Sweden. But I'm very happy to be on your show.
Thank you for coming on. It's just can you give us a brief overview of Thiago Motta and his career so far?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke off. Can you repeat that?
Could you give us a brief overview of Thiago Motta and his career so far?
Yeah. So of course, I think an interesting fact with Thiago Motta is he did very well with Spezia when he was there. He was kind of sacked in December, but since the management didn't manage to find a new coach, he kind of stayed in December, January, and during the period where he was actually sacked, he went on to win 2 or 3 games in a row and saved Spezia in Serie A, even though everyone knew he was sacked. And I think that was one of his biggest achievements that nobody is actually talking about, because he saved a team that honestly shouldn't stay in Serie A. They were not good enough. Did well there, went on to Bologna. I think last year his Bologna side was probably one of the most hyped sides in Europe. I kind of think they were hyped for the wrong reasons, because everyone was talking about Joshua Zirkzee and how good they were in the offense. Also offensively, and what a great football they were playing. But I think their best part was the defense. And I think that was when they scored a goal, they were really hard to break down, or when they had a result they wanted to grind out, they were really hard to break down. And he wrote history by taking them back to Champions League football. Obviously, I think that was a big achievement for them, playing the football that they did, and him being kind of new on this stage. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, that landed him the Juventus job. I think Juve was probably too big of a step for him, but there are some circumstances there that I think should be mentioned. They had conceded, I think, 1 or 0 goals for a very long time until they lost Bremer, who broke his ACL. After that, they had problems in defense. Before that, they were extremely solid. I think the team was trying to play better football. They wanted to have more possession style, and if it's something that Motta's always done, is that he believes in position football. He wants his teams to have the ball, and not just to create chances or dominate the game, but I think mainly to concede less chances. I think, however, one thing that led to him getting sacked at Juventus is that he has a kind of tricky character. He has a character that I think the players don't always appreciate. And one thing is having that at Bologna or Spezia. Another thing is having that at Juventus, where you're going to get into big personalities, a big locker room, big history. And I just think in the end, the players didn't tolerate him more. I don't think they should have sacked him, but I think in the end it was the only thing to do, because they lost big against Atalanta and against one more team that I can't remember at the moment. So I think that had to happen, but I think also the club made very poor decisions on the transfer market in the summer, which kind of would have helped Motta do better.
Yeah. When you speak about he has a possession-based style of play, what is his? Has he got a favoured formation? Does his teams press off the ball?
Yeah, I think so. He's changed the formations in all his teams, and both at Bologna and at Juventus, he used to rotate very much. Like it wasn't strange to see him switch the center back pairings, which is usually something that most managers wouldn't do. I think at Juventus, something that stood out was that he had 7 or 8 different captains, which I didn't like. To answer your question about the position football, I think usually he goes with a 4-man defense. Usually it's a team that can both lie low, but that can also compress you high. I think mostly this year he was criticized because the team just kept the ball, had the possession, but didn't create anything, which was, of course, functioning well as long as they weren't conceding goals, because then they'd get a win or a narrow win or at worst a draw. When the defense started to not work anymore, then they had problems. So usually four-man defense, usually possession based, but not into improve their attacking, is mostly I'd say a defensive way to keep the ball, to tire the opponents, to have the opponents far from their goal. And this way I think that his Juve side kind of weren't adapted to his ideas, because the wingers were probably not good enough. The striker Vlahovic honestly has had a terrible season and wasn't good enough. So many things that went wrong, I'd say wouldn't go wrong at other clubs.
In terms of player development, did he at Bologna or Spezia, even Juventus, did he develop players and sell them on for bigger fees?
Yeah, I think I think the best two cases are Calafiori, who went to Arsenal for big money from Bologna.
Yeah.
Well, was a of course a very good technical player for even before Thiago Motta, but was also someone that he developed into becoming, like a total central defender or left defender who could take the ball up and become almost a midfielder or winger. I think Xerxes, as I consider Xerxes still a good player, even though he has had a bit of a hard time at United. I think it's a good player, but his development in the second year with Thiago Motta was really good. I think he got more goals, he got more assists, he was more involved, and also a lot of like the passes that led to goals. So I'd say absolutely, it's someone who can develop players. I think it's someone who has good ideas and interesting ideas. I think his problem is not in the tactical or developing part. I think if there is one like so-called red flag with Thiago Motta, it's how he handles the group and the personal relationships.
What would you say his biggest strength is then? What's his best quality as a manager?
I'd say that the strength is that he has always overperformed until he now didn't at Juventus. And of course, for Juve, the big problem was they were eliminated in the Champions League against PSV, which they shouldn't have been. It's a big failure. They were eliminated in the cup by Empoli, which once again, of course, you shouldn't be. They were kind of risking to not make the Champions League, but that's happening even without Thiago Motta. So for me, that's more down probably to the players and the squad and the directors than Motta. I'd say his strengths before the season has been that he's always overperformed. He did it with Spezia, he did it with Bologna. He has interesting and modern ideas, I think. And also, I think when we talk about Thiago Motta, we have to mention that he's someone who, as a player, won a lot. He's someone who, as a player, won the Champions League, won leagues in different countries. He's been managed by the best managers in the world, from Mourinho to Ancelotti to his Barca days. So he's obviously a player who has all of what you need to do well. And I think if he had done well at Juventus as well, he'd probably be talked about in the same way as Xabi Alonso was talked about last year, right? Because they have kind of like a similar CV, kind of like a similar identity. So I think those are his strengths. But obviously, when you fail at a big club like Juventus, there will always be that kind of feeling that maybe he isn't cut for the absolute top clubs in football.
Yeah. What would you say his next step is in management then?
For me, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of bounced back to a minor or big club in Italy, like not a minor as a small club in Italy. I'd say probably a club size of Atalanta or maybe Lazio or clubs like that, or even somewhere with a little less pressure. I think that would be probably for me the the most likely part, since he's, he knows the language, he has a good CV there. But I'm not sure he'd start managing straight away again, or if he'd take a year off, or because you need the right opportunity to come. But I think still, even though it didn't go well at Juve, that he has a good name. He's also appreciated in France, where he played for many years. So my guess would be we will see him in a club in Italy soon, but that is not one of the best.
Do you think he could take his ideas and tactical approach over to a foreign country like Scotland and at Rangers?
I I I think he's a manager who would prefer to be in the top five leagues in the world. But I wouldn't be surprised if a club like Rangers, who are ambitious and want to improve, say, let's give him a call. Maybe he can jump on the project. Maybe that's going to inspire him. If I was working at the club, I probably would give it a try to see what they can do, and in order to bounce back, in order to gain more experience. But I think since he's done so well in Italy with the smaller clubs, or at least smaller than Juventus, I think his priority is going to be to bounce back in the top five leagues, and I think that's where his focus is.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, because also, I think Rangers is still a club that won't say, "Hey, come take 2 billions to spend. We will guarantee you this and that." I think it's still a project club, and I think if that's that, he will probably prefer a league that either he knows better, or where he feels that he still has positivity.
We're actually waiting on a takeover happening. My take from San Francisco 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh. So the reason I wanted to do the interview is because, like, before the takeover, we would have a certain list of managers of a certain calibre. And now I think we could be potentially looking at a better list of managers, because of the funding that's going to be there, the development on the squad. Everything's kind of looking up. We're looking to close the gap on Celtic, make Champions League football.
Yeah.
And Thiago Motta would be somebody that would excite the Rangers support. See, in terms of playing and managing in a two-team league, that's what Scotland is. It's Rangers and Celtic. There's not any other clubs that really compete for the title.
Yeah.
Do you think he would be able to handle the pressure of winning every week?
Yeah, I think when you've played at the level that he has played, and he obviously had the same situation at Juve, like I'd say, where you have to win, and I think I believe that maybe you're onto something. Maybe that kind of pressure and that kind of view. I mean, he was like very criticized because he said when they lost the game and that meant they wouldn't compete for the title, he said something like, "It's good now because now people won't talk about us for the title." While at Juventus, if you say that, you're basically done with, because at Juve they expect you to fight for the title, and if you don't, they expect you to be angry about it, not relieved.
Yeah.
But I still think, even though that pressure is there, that he, as player and manager, has handled that kind of situation before, and that he would be up for it at Rangers. Then, of course, when you have to win every week, and if you miss a game, and that means Celtic goes on to win, that's going to be very difficult to handle. But I think he has the CV and the experience to handle a situation like that, seeing what is done, and mostly as player, but also as manager, because at Juve, that's the pressure you have.
Yeah. How do you think his reputation is still viewed in Italy? Does he still have quite a high stock?
Yeah, I think he I think it took a knock, of course, because the Juve time wasn't good, and I'd say also, like, a lot of things went wrong. But I don't think they were as bad as many come to say. I also think it's difficult to take over after someone like Allegri, who's won a lot and who's been there a long time and who has been there for many years. I kind of think it's not fair to compare a coach on his first year with someone who was there 3 years. I also think that it made his life a bit more difficult that he has a past at Inter and went to Juventus. That said, I still think he has good status in Italy. I think that the clubs just outside the top, like Inter, like Milan, like Juve and Napoli, will still consider him. I think that even the mid to bottom teams will still consider him. I still really believe that he has a good name and reputation in Italy, and that some club will take a gamble on him. The question I have is, will he want to get out of his time off to take over something? If he
Yeah,
does, I'd say he'll do it in the summer and not maybe in the middle of the season.
yeah, yeah. Right, well, I don't think I've got anything else to ask you, so thank you for coming on. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on X and Instagram and TikTok with the same name, Siavush F. So if you're watching the show, that's my first name and the F of my last name. So you'll find me on all platforms with the same name.
Right, well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Cheers.
Cheers.